Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Cliff and this is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing a wrap up of all the books I've read in February, so please stay tuned and enjoy. First of all, it's been an interesting month of reading for me. I took part in the folklore readathon, and that took up a little bit of time in reading the fairy tales, reading a short story, the fairy tale retelling, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But as a result, I did not get through my full TBR, but I do feel that I've had a fairly good reading month. Okay, the first book that I did not finish, and in fact I didn't even start this month, is Beyond Band of Brothers. I know that this is the second time it's been on my TBR, but it is a war non-fiction, and if ever there's time on my channel where I speak about war, then I'll pick it up again, but I'm sure all of you would prefer me to talk about horror, because that's what this channel is about. So that's Beyond Band of Brothers. Okay, the second one I have not picked up is the second of my Ed McBain adventure, and this is Killer's Payoff. Now, this will definitely go into my next month's TBR, and it might count towards a mystery mayhem of March. I'm not sure what it's called, the readathon, because it's quite an edgy crime thriller. The first of two books I have started, and I really only just started them, is Ed McBain's Killer's Choice. Now this is to do with a serious murder that takes place really close to the beginning, where this redhead is shot down 4 times in the chest in a liquor store, and then the killer goes on to absolutely destroy this liquor store with just glass and liquor everywhere. As usual, the police go out and try and find suspects, and in this particular short novel there are plenty of them, and I'm looking forward to finding out where this goes. The next book I've started but haven't got very far is Zombie by Slade. I'm intrigued so far. Starts off with the Battle of Rorke's Rift. Now for those of you who don't know, this took place 100 years ago, and it was between the Anglo and the Zulus in Southern Africa, or in South Africa actually, the Eastern Cape. Now I'm pretty sure this has something to do with the story later on. I think it's quite important. It's a very complex novel, and then we shoot forward 100 years and we are in British Columbia, and there's a series of brutal murders. I'm enjoying it so far, but it is kind of complex, and I can see, I've actually looked at Goodreads and I can see some people, this is not their favourite XXX book in the series, because it is all over the place, and I think it moves time zones quite often. Okay, and for the next 6 books which I have read in February, I'm going to rank them from 3-star up to the 5-star, and actually there's a lot of 4 stars in there, but I'm going to rank them from my least favourite to my favourite. Starting off with Blue World by Robet McCammon. Now I was a little bit let down by this, not so much by the short stories, because some of them were excellent, but by the novella itself, which is called Blue World. Now this is about a Catholic priest who falls in love with a porn star, and at the same time there's this killer on the loose that is going after the porn stars in the industry, and I found it kind of dull and slow going. I found myself actually skipping through pages and skimming. The ending was okay, but overall this turned this into like maybe from a 4-star down to a 3-star. But as I say, some of the short stories, even though they're a mixed bag, some of the short stories are excellent. First short story that actually really stood out for me was the opening one in the novel, and that is called The Yellow Jacket Summer. Now this is a creepy, scary story where a young family, a mother and 2 children, take a wrong turn. They're supposed to meet with their husband, and they find themselves in the middle of nowhere at a petrol station, and it involves a dangerous, creepy boy and the yellow jackets. And I had to look up what yellow jackets were. They are these wasps that are kind of dangerous. And the story takes a turn for the worse, and it's got a very good ending. The second standout for me was a story called Night Calls, The Green Falcon. Now this is not so much a horror story, but it is a beautiful, almost nostalgic look at a retired superhero actor. He used to act in serials, and he's now a fairly lonely old man, and it's a long time since he's worn the cape and the suit, and basically his neighbour gets murdered. She's a prostitute, she gets horrendously murdered, and he decides, because he picks up a lead, that he's going to go after the killer himself, and he's going to don the suit and put on the headpiece one last time. Now this is sad. It's almost like looking at old age and wanting to relive your glorious youth. And he goes out and he finds his allies, the most unexpected allies, and they have these fantastical adventures. It's scary in parts, and they track down this killer, who is a serial killer. I think it's called a flip-flop or flip-top killer. It's exciting, but engaging, but it's not a horror, but it is a beautiful story. I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next book that I read, and I did enjoy it, but it is definitely not vintage Barker, is Clive Barker TheScarlet Gospels. Now I found this a strange one, because the first 2/3 of the book was definitely a 2-star, maybe a 3-star for me, and it's only towards the end when they're going to hell that it's a 4-star. Very first chapter is fantastic, where Pinhead, the Cenobite, and he's the priest of hell, and he does off with these magicians. He kills them off gruesomely. And basically what he's been doing is been going around gathering magic towards himself and stealing their magic in order to achieve his goals, which we found out a bit later what that is. From it, then on, it actually dips a little bit. Introduced to some characters. The 3 characters that I enjoyed were Pinhead himself, but don't ever call him that by name. Harry Lamore, who's a private investigator, sort of a supernatural investigator. His whole body is covered with these intricate little tattoos that protect him from the spirit world or the supernatural world. And then there's Norma, who is a blind medium who can speak to ghosts. And Norma and Harry are very, very close. Harry is set up, and he ends up opening up the gates to hell. And Pinhead tries to take him to pen the Scarlet Gospels, to bear witness. Now we're introduced to these other characters at the beginning, and they were pretty pathetic. They had nothing really to do with the story. They were irritating, kind of cardboard, cut out, cartoonish arseholes that the book could have done without. But where it really takes off is when Pinhead tries to get Harry into hell with him so that he can bear witness to him taking over hell. That's his ultimate goal. And that's not a spoiler, that's at the back. And instead, Pinhead captures Norma, and Harry ventures into hell with these other, the arseholes. And that's when the story takes off. And that's where it becomes fun for me, because the descriptions of hell are actually very creative, and it's fun. It's gory, it's nasty, and it's not always, didn't remind me of early Clive Barker. It's kind of silly, but it becomes a lot of fun as you travel through hell and they chase after Pinhead to see what's happening. So I enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. But out of all the 4-star books that I have here, this is perhaps more a 3.5 star. It's not what I expect from Barker, but still, it was fun. Stupid, but fun. Okay, next I read this month, we need to talk about Kevin. Now, I have spoken about this book at length already. It is disturbing, it is distressing. I still gave it 4 stars because it is a very good read, but it is incredibly depressing. And that's why, on a fun level, I rated it lower than the other ones. But it is still worth a read. Check out my other reviews. Okay, next we have Michael McDowell, Cold Moon over Babylon. Now this was an excellent tale of supernatural revenge. And now two things that Michael McDowell does very, very well is setting and characters. And this is Southern Gothic. The setting is a small town called Babylon in the deep south, and it holds some very memorable characters. But what's really interesting about this is the local river that runs by this town Babylon is called the Styx. Now Styx, if you don't know, that's the river of hell, and this river is infested with marshes, poisonous snakes, mosquitoes, and all sorts of manner of terrible things. And now this is about a family called the Larkins who eke out a living in very close proximity to this river, the Styx. They sell blueberries. They are in deep financial trouble. They actually mysteriously lost a mother and father who went out fishing. That's because it's a grandmother and two grandchildren. Mother and father disappeared, and they're in deep financial trouble with the bank. Now the youngest, Margaret, gets brutally murdered, and that's when things start to happen. The sheriff is investigating some suspects. The main suspect is this teacher, English teacher at the local school, although he's not the kind of person that would do something like that. So it's actually, we can all see as a reader, it's not going to be him. But the characters start taking shape, and the interactions between the various characters in the town are very interesting. And as their motives kind of unfold, the story unfolds. It is a slow burn. It builds up to a climax. There's obviously the supernatural involved, as you will see as you read, and it really builds up to a shattering, bloody, supernatural climax. Well worth a read, and a lot of fun. Okay, now we come to my second favourite read of the month. This is almost a 5-star, and it is Cain, Heartsick. Now this deals with a psychotic, blonde, beautiful, very high IQ serial killer who captures Archie. And now Archie's a cop who has been hunting her for years and years. He was leader of his task force, and she captures him, she takes him, and she tortures him in the most brutal ways possible, mentally, psychologically, and physically. After 10 days of this torture, she inexplicably lets him go and turns herself over to the police. 2 years later, Archie is back on the force, and they are hunting another serial killer who is killing young teenage girls. And now there's a reporter involved as well, but the important thing about the story is that Archie is a broken man. He has not recovered from this torture. He is taking pain, he's addicted to pain pills. He has lost his wife left him. He's a broken man. He can hardly keep his mind on the job, and one thing his mind is on is Gretchen, which is kind of this sick relationship that develops between the two of them. Now, it's very rarely that I read a book where the subplot, for me, is more interesting than the main plot. The main plot being, obviously, the case at hand. There's a killer at large, killing these teenage girls, but the subplot of the relationship between Archie and Gretchen is just so intriguing and so interesting, because Gretchen is unlike any serial killer you'll read ever. I mean, she'll give Hannibal Lecter a run for her money. So the thing is, Gretchen is behind bars, supposedly secure. Archie should be safe. But every week or 2 weeks, I can't remember which it is, but that's not important. I think it's every Sunday, he visits Gretchen, who's safe behind bars. And Gretchen will only see him, and as a result reveal another corpse, someone else who's dead, and reveal the location. And so Archie tells himself and his wife, this will give the family closure, and that is why I'm going to see her. But there's a lot more to meet the eye, and it's obviously something a lot more intricate than that. It's a sick relationship, and all I can say about this book, I can't wait to read the next one in the series. Gretchen is just the most interesting, messed up, screwed up serial killer I've ever met. And if you pick up this book for any other reason, it's because of this dynamic. Awesome, awesome read. Okay, the last book I'm showing you is Joyland by Stephen King, my 1 5-star read for this month. Now, I've already spoken about this already at some length on a previous video, but I'll just say this is not a horror. It is a crime mystery, even though the crime mystery kind of takes a back seat. It is a heartfelt, warming, coming of age, slice of life, of being young, that takes place in Funland, in a carnival, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. It's exciting, there is a crime, there is a murder, there's a lot of things taking place, but it's about friendship, it's about love, it's about just being in touch with those things that when you get older, those things that are gone and you miss. There's a nostalgic, there's a sadness. I absolutely love this novel, and I would highly recommend it. And in fact, 11/22/63 and this book I would recommend to anyone who's new to Stephen King, because it is just, you get used to his writing without all the horror and the gore. In addition to that, his short stories, that's a very good way to get into Stephen King, because if you enjoy some of his horror short stories, then you're sure to enjoy some of his longer novels. But that is Joyland. Was an absolute joy to read. Okay everyone, that was my February reading wrap-up. Please be sure to tune in on Thursday, where I'm going to be announcing my March TBR. And that will include 1 or 2 other readathons, and in particular the one where there's weird reads involved. I want to include readathons that fit with my channel's identity, so I'm looking forward to presenting that on Thursday. Until then, keep those pages turning, take care of yourselves, and cheers.